We have been talking in our class about Jesus in the temple, the very week that he was led away to be crucified. Luke chapter 20. Jesus had always known the time would come for him to go to Jerusalem and carry his cross. Before his final journey to Jerusalem, for the last time, for his last Passover, Jesus prepared his disciples for what was to come. Jesus gave his disciples 3 short prophecies on 3 separate days, warnings about what would happen. The Son of Man must suffer many things. He will be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law. He must be killed, and on the 3rd day be raised to life. Listen carefully to what I am about to tell you. The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. The Son of Man will be handed over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged and crucified. Those are brutal prophecies that will be fulfilled at the hands of treacherous men. Luke marks the very moment of Jesus' departure to Jerusalem. Listen to this. When it came time for him to be taken up to heaven, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. Interesting. Jesus warns his disciples that he will be mocked, flogged, and crucified in Jerusalem. But Luke says he departed for Jerusalem because it was the time for him to be taken up to heaven. First the cross, then the ascension. First the humiliation, then the glory. Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem because the ascension was close. He knows there will not be a straight path to his Father. It is not going to be straight, and it is not going to be easy. First, it will take him to Jerusalem, where he will spend a few days in the temple, teaching and healing. Then he will be crucified. On the 3rd day, he will rise. On the 40th day, he will ascend to his Father. Luke records 2 visits by Jesus to the temple for the Passover. The one we will talk about today in Luke chapter 20, and one that happened some 21 years earlier when he was 12 years old. You know that story. Joseph and Mary went back to Jerusalem to find Jesus in his Father's house, doing his Father's work. He was talking with the scribes, listening and asking them questions, and they were amazed at his understanding. Who were these scribes who were impressed by Jesus' understanding? They were the best of the best, extremely capable, well versed in the scriptures, teachers of the law, men who sat on the Sanhedrin council. Now back to Jesus and his disciples. 21 years later, Jesus is in the temple again during the Passover, talking with the scribes again. Questions and counter questions, challenging debates in public for all the people to hear. Oh yes, Jesus is back. But this has a very different tone. They try to trap Jesus with their questions. They are angry. They want him arrested. They want to take him out and stone him. They plot his death at the hands of the Romans. When he was 12, it was friendly. Joseph and Mary took him back to Galilee. But this time it is different. Jesus is in the lion's den. These men are angry. They are treacherous. They are powerful. Their power comes from the Sanhedrin, the supreme council of 70 men who have the power to sentence men to death. Men like Barabbas, men like the rebels who will be crucified with Jesus. These are the same men who will drag Stephen out of the Sanhedrin, across the temple, out of the city, and stone him in a fit of rage. This week will not go easy for Jesus. This Passover will bring him to death. It will not go easy, but it will end well. On the third day he will rise. On the 40th day he will ascend to his Father. Jesus enters Jerusalem riding on a donkey, a symbol of peace. But when he enters the temple, he comes in bold, driving out the animals and the men who sold them. A direct assault on the chief priest. These priests are wealthy, and this is their marketplace. Jesus rebukes them with scripture. It is written, "My house shall be a house of prayer," but you have made it a den of robbers. That is a very bold way to begin the week with men whom you know are going to kill you. But Jesus is not shy, and he is not afraid. Luke says every day he was teaching in the temple, and the priests and the scribes were trying to kill him. Yet they could not find a way because all the people hung on his words. Every night, Jesus went to the Mount of Olives to spend the night. And early, every morning, he returned to the temple to teach. And the people came early to hear him. And Matthew tells us the blind and the lame came to him to be healed. Jesus is in his Father's house doing his Father's work, teaching the people, healing the blind, healing the lame. The priests and the scribes did not like the teaching, and they did not like the healing. But the people liked Jesus. They hung on his every word. The people are important. Jesus has debates with the scribes. They are humiliated by Jesus, but they won't do anything to him because they are afraid of the people. The people insulate Jesus from being arrested or stoned. Jesus drives out the animals, and they cannot find a way to kill him because of the people. Jesus tells a parable of judgment. Judgment against the priest. Judgment against the scribes. But they will not arrest him because they are afraid of the people. Is John's baptism from God or man? They will not answer because the people might stone us. Jesus answered a question about taxes. Give back to Caesar that which is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. They were astonished by his answer and became silent. A question about the resurrection, and no one dared ask any more questions. They could not trap Jesus with their questions, and they would not arrest him because of the people. But in the end, he will be arrested, and he will be put to death. But not during the day, not in the temple, not in front of the people. They will go out to the Mount of Olives in secret at night with torches and clubs. Drag Jesus to the temple, into the Sanhedrin, put him on trial, and sentence him to death. This will not go easy, but it will end well. They hand Jesus over to Annas, the high priest. Caiaphas hands him over to the Sanhedrin. From the Sanhedrin to Pilate. From Pilate to Herod Antipas, the tetrarch of Galilee who beheaded John. And finally back to Pilate. Then to the soldiers who flogged him and nailed him to the cross. This Passover turned out to be very different for Jesus than the first when he was 12. Do you know who the high priest was when Jesus was 12? Annas. Do you know who the high priest is that handed him over to be crucified? Annas, the same high priest. It is possible that when Jesus was 12, he was sitting among the scribes whom he debated this week. It is possible that scribes who were astonished by his understanding at his first Passover sentenced him to death at his last Passover. Now, there is no evidence of that, but it is a possibility. The last Passover did not go easy, but it did end well. One day Jesus is crucified. On another day, he was raised. On another day, he ascended to his Father. Jesus has reached his goal.